Hey everyone, my name is Sarah Davidson and I'm the founder of Hello Fearless, which is the school for female entrepreneurs. Each week we do our Fearless Founders series, which is in-depth video interviews with women who have built incredible businesses and lives, and they share their tips and tricks behind how they made it happen. On this episode, it's an interview with Laurie Davis, who's the founder of eFlirt Expert, which is an online dating consultancy where she helps thousands of men and women all over the world navigate the intersection of dating and technology. She's a world-renowned expert. She's had so many media appearances. She has a best-selling book, and the interview really shares how she got started. She actually lost her job several years ago and had to figure out a way to make money, and realized that this passion that she had, and she was so good at helping her friends navigate the online dating world, that she could actually turn it into a business. And she was way ahead of the curve. And this girl is pure hustle. She talks about all of the early guerrilla marketing tactics that she used to get customers, how she learned everything she needed to know to become a business owner when she needed to learn it, how she scaled her business beyond herself when she decided to hire, and as her business has grown, how her customer base has broadened and how she manages that as well. And also, one of the things that I love about her so much is she just totally cuts through the bullshit notion that it's impossible to have a business or meet the love of my life when I'm starting a business or when I'm growing this business. She actually met her husband 2 weeks into starting her business, and they're now very happily married. And I love that, because Hello Fearless is all about creating this holistic life, and she's certainly a fearless entrepreneur, and I'm so excited for you to watch the interview. So enjoy. Okay, hi Laurie.
Hey!
I'm so glad you're here. Guys, this is Laurie Davis, and when we were putting together our list of fearless founders, she was one of the first people that came to mind for a number of different reasons, and I'm so excited to have you.
Well, same here.
Okay, so I'd love to have you share with our viewers a little bit about yourself, what the name of your company is and what you do, and then we'll kind of dive into your background.
Sure. So my name is Laurie Davis, and my company is eFlirt Expert. And basically, we're an online dating consultancy. So we help online daters who are struggling or who are frustrated, or maybe who are scared to do it just in the first place. We help them navigate online dating by writing their profiles for them, decoding their dates' text messages.
Very cool. Okay, so how did you get started in that? So tell me the whole background.
So I used to work in marketing. I started eFlirt Expert about 5 years ago, and I used to work in marketing primarily for Fortune 500s, but I was a consultant, and I worked on large-scale events. I had made this niche for myself doing these big events. So like 5,000 attendee corporate user conferences and sales meetings, things like that, which basically what I was doing was taking the messaging that marketing wanted to get across to the audience, helping them define what that is, and then get that message across in a very creative, entertaining way that really speaks to whoever is in the audience. And so I would work with the production company, kind of liaison between the marketing team, the CEO, the production company, everyone, to create this really engaging content for these conferences. And conferences, by the way, is just not a business that is sustainable at all in the recession. Because all these conferences were just completely, they stopped having them entirely. And so all my contracts dried up, and I was in oh shit mode. Like, what am I going to do to pay my rent? And I started thinking about how I could use my marketing skills differently, and I was brainstorming, and I kept coming up with nothing until one of my friends called, and he told me that he was moving in with his girlfriend. And I just thought, oh my God, I helped you meet her on Match.com. And I helped that girl meet her boyfriend on eHarmony. And I helped that guy get laid a lot on Plenty of Fish. And this is something that I actually,
I love how you just like basically categorized every single site. What would you say about Tinder right now? If that was like
Tinder wasn't around then.
Right.
But I literally, like, I had been helping people do this for years. And I was an early adopter to online dating myself. So that's why I was the first person that people knew who were doing it. And sometimes I was the one to convince them to do it, even.
Was this when you were, okay, so were you living in New York at the time?
I was living in New York, yeah.
Is that where you're from?
No, I'm from Boston.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and I had just gotten this new studio apartment, which I was like so proud of, on my own. And now, like, how am I gonna pay my rent here? Because it's contracts. And so I realized, like, what I actually helped these people do was market themselves online on a dating site. Like, I literally thought about, you know, who they were and who they were looking to try to meet, who's that audience up there, right, in the virtual world, and help them project the right message that's authentic still, and to meet that way. And I had given them all this advice on what they do on their dates offline too. So I started my company really with this idea that I could help people find love, but really do it by leveraging everything that I had done previously in my profession.
Okay, so what's so interesting about that, because what we do at Hello Fearless is what I believe to be so true about creating a successful business is knowing what you're really good at, what you're not good at, and what you love doing and what you don't love doing, what the world needs and what they'll pay you for. So like, you're great at marketing, and do you have passion to help people find love? Is that just something that you're really passionate about?
God, it's like my biggest passion. And it's something I never really thought of. Like, it's something I always just did. And then once I thought about it, and I was like, oh my God, this is like what I'm made to do in life. Like, I mean, this is like what I love doing. And I can use what I've done professionally to do this, and this is something I really believe people need, because 5 years ago was right when online dating started to become really mainstream. So it was a time when it was becoming very increasingly important for you to stand out. So I literally just started brainstorming right there in my pajamas, didn't sleep for 2 days, and then like brainstormed the name of the company, the services, wrote the copy, bought like a GoDaddy template website builder, and with $50 in a Twitter account, like made the site live. That was it.
You started a business with $50 in a Twitter account?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so this is like 5 years ago. So were people kind of hesitant about online dating at the time, or like what was going on in the space?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like I said, it was just becoming kind of mainstream for you to date online. So the stigma was definitely being released at the time. But the idea of you hiring someone to help you do it is like yet another thing to overcome. Like, maybe now you're over the stigma of online dating, but now you have to go ahead and hire someone. So definitely, I think the biggest part of being a first mover in my business was the education to the consumer that this even existed, one, and two, why they absolutely totally needed this, and what I could do to really change things for them. So that was definitely like a huge hurdle to overcome.
Okay, so did you start blogging, or how did you actually start? Because what's interesting is, like, I've worked in a lot of those industries where you're kind of ahead of the curve, so you actually have to, you have to educate people on the need and why that's important. Whereas now people are like, yeah, I need some help with my profile, like I suck at promoting myself, right? So how did you do that?
So I did a lot of guerrilla marketing.
Okay.
And like I had this marketing.
Go on.
And previously, in a past life, I was an Avon lady. And you do a lot of guerrilla marketing as an Avon lady, like going out and randomly hanging catalogs on people's doorknobs and things like that. So So I basically took a lot of those tactics and I made up flyers, and I got interns to run around New York City and like put flyers in coffee shops and printed out postcards that they put on the subway, and posted like Craigslist ads like online dating guru will write your profile for you. And then of course I knew that social media could be helpful, so I started Facebook and really Twitter. Like Twitter overall has been the biggest driver for business for us. And really it started kind of in a creepy way by me just like jumping in on people's conversations. I just searched like OkCupid, and I would see all these people talking about how they hated OkCupid and it was the worst thing ever. And I would jump in on their conversation and say like, oh, but have you thought about it this way? And they'd be like, A, who are you? But B, like, that's awesome advice. Follow.
Yes. Oh my, I love the hustle. I love the hustle. Well, I'm a marketing person, so that's so amazing. Okay, so how did the guerrilla marketing tactics work, right? So like for women that are just starting a business or trying to grow a business, when you're kind of like, okay, I want to throw a bunch of stuff up against a wall and see what works. So how effective were some of those tactics for you?
I mean, the guerrilla marketing worked really well.
Really?
Yeah, it really did. And I think that like you're saying, it's like you don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. And the great thing about guerrilla marketing is that it's cheap. And so you spent, maybe $20 printing out a bunch of flyers. And if you don't get any calls back from it, like, oh, well, your life goes on, So you're on to the next thing and you can try something new. And I think that trying so many types of things that were in the similar vein, all guerrilla marketing, but some on Craigslist, some in flyers. I also learned what worked best. One thing we did is we actually did like a comment campaign, I would call it, and that we would go to like a bunch of dating blogs and we would comment on the post and really give advice in that comment. But that like got us our first couple users just by commenting on other people's blogs. And of course, then we blogged ourselves, and we were giving a lot of advice. It wasn't we then, it was me, but I was giving a lot of advice on Twitter, and those things really picked up too. What I realized, and the thing that Twitter I think did really well for us, is that for a coach in particular, you want to develop a relationship. And so Twitter really allowed me in 140 characters to give bite-sized pieces of advice that then people would start asking questions. And then the relationship developed to the point where they would DM me and be like, all right, I think I need your help. What do I do?
That is freaking brilliant. That is so smart. So on your Craigslist ads or even the guerrilla marketing that you're doing, were you really aware of what their pain point was? So like for those of us that are not, or those women that are not marketers or copywriters, like how did you know even what message to say or how to compel them to talk to you or reach out?
I guess it was a little easier for me in that I had helped some friends before.
You had some customers, yeah.
Yeah, I had some testimonials, but more so I thought about what were their pain points, and that helped me figure out what my customers' pain points might be. And funny enough, though, my first couple customers were nothing like my friends, and that was a little jarring to me. Like, I had been helping, like young, like 20-somethings, some teens, like, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds to like 27-year-olds maybe at the time. And my first client was in his 40s and divorced and like sleeping with married women.
Right.
I was like, oh my God.
A little bit.
What did I just do?
Right. You're like specifically trying to attract these different types of people, but you're just flyering all of New York. And so who knows who's going to like pick up the flyer and come to you.
Exactly. And I think that was the coolest part about it though, is that like I thought it would be one thing and it wasn't, but then I was able to adjust according to that, according to the trends that I continued to see. So I started thinking it would be one thing. And I think that that's really common for other founders that I talk to, is that when that happens, you like freak out a little bit. Maybe you think that you did something wrong, but you did something right. Because you can I can always get those 20 somethings. I don't know how to get that like middle-aged guy who lives in Texas and who's divorced, and like I got him. So how cool is that? Like, what did I do to get him, and how can I get more of him?
Mm. Well, who's your favorite? Who's your favorite client?
So many.
Okay, I won't make you say that. But okay, so how did you figure out your pricing model like right off the bat? I mean, how did you? Because it's not like you Google a blueprint of how to create an online dating service or what you were trying to offer, and here's how I price this. Here's what I do, right? So how did you figure that out?
I mean, pricing is really, really hard. It's something like we continue to struggle with, just to be really honest. And I think that when I first started, the only comparable thing to us was like Match.com had a profile writing service. So I looked at what their service was and I tried to be competitive towards it, but realizing that their service is different than ours too. Like they didn't meet with you and we meet with you. So like there's this level of personal connection that we have that's deeper than theirs. So I charged $10 more than them because I just didn't know. I didn't know how to price anything. I was writing profiles back then for $59. Now it's $197, just to give you a little comparative.
Okay.
But I do think that knowing your value as an entrepreneur and knowing the value of your service is a really hard thing. And I actually, like I said, it's something we continue to struggle with. And this year we went through a big, huge transition because, basically we started at $59 and I just kept like inching it up and seeing like how much more people would pay. And because I can always bring it back down, right? I mean, who's watching? Who's watching every day on my website saying, it's $10 more.
Right. Yes.
And so especially when we hit certain milestones, like when my book came out, right before it came out, we jumped up, $50 more just to see what would happen. And as long as people continue to buy it, it was fine. But then we hit this point this year. It was actually right over the holiday season. So we have two different types of services. One is like the everyday average online dater, like we'll write your profile. And then this other service that we've been honing really is our biggest revenue generator, is like when we manage your entire online dating life. It's like not even just your online dating life, it's your love life. Like we're helping you with your emotions and like everything. And so with that service, like I said, it's our highest revenue generator. And we hit max capacity at the end of last year. And I was like, oh my God, really cool. We've never done this. So I guess we'll just wait. There are a couple of people whose contracts are expiring, and if they don't continue, but then we just kept getting more and more and more and more inquiries. And then suddenly we were at like a 25-person wait list. I think by the time I figured out the problem, like how to fix the problem, we were at a 35-person wait list, and we can only take 15 at a time. And that's like a lot. We don't really like to take 15 at a time. So some of these people are literally, and some of the contracts are 6 months long. Some of these people are literally going to be waiting over a year, and they're not going to care about us by then. Like we're going to lose the sale and we're not going to be able to help them, which is like kind of sad to me. So I started talking to a bunch of other entrepreneurs and saying like, how have you scaled? Because I think I need to scale like faster than I'm doing. Everything has been on scale so far, except now all of a sudden we need to jump, and I don't know how to do it in a way that's going to be sustainable and not like go too big too fast. And so so I started talking to other entrepreneurs, and I also talked to a couple of business coaches, and one of the business coaches said to me, "You're not charging enough." And I was like, what do you mean?
It's always that small little thing, right? Where you're like, okay, I'm trying to scale. I have which for our listeners might be a little bit down the road, but like seriously, but like I've had so many friends and they're like, okay, raise your prices.
Right. And so I'm like, okay. And then I actually ran the numbers and I was like, oh my gosh, on some of these people we're not making money.
Mm.
Like where like it's so time intensive for us to do this.
Seriously?
And I was like, all right, she's right. So I actually started working with her and we repriced everything, like including the other like profile rating services.
Up until this point, had you ever worked with, had you done, okay, so I'm interested to know,
Yeah.
because with our business, it's the same. I'd never done financial modeling, and really assessing what your pricing model is and all of that. Had you worked with a business coach? Had you done that all on your own? Like all of your operational costs, overhead, everything like that.
I mean, until this year, I had really done everything myself. Like
Right.
I have a staff. I think I took during my first year of business, I took my first full-time employee towards the end of the year. But they were always helping me with client stuff, and administrative stuff, not necessarily anything operational, or it was more like billing versus accounting, if that
Yeah.
makes
Yep.
sense.
Yep.
And so that was definitely like basically we're growing past my capacity here, which is kind of a scary thing. But at the same time, I learned that a little, like I invested in this business coach and it was a really scary investment for me to make. And we've earned back 5 times my investment in her.
Why did you decide to scale a business beyond yourself? You probably could have had a decently profitable business just, doing it the way you were with an assistant, or why did you decide to do that?
My vision for this company was always to help people find love, right? Like that's
Yeah.
ultimately what the core of everything is. And when you're just one person, there's only so much you can do. And there are other things that I've done to try to help more people. Like I've written a book, which you can buy Barnes& Noble, Amazon, anything. So there are people I'm helping that way, right? But I just knew that there needed to be more of me in order to do this. And I have a big vision for where I want this business to go, and I can't get there on my own. So it's really important for me. And also to keep up with the demand, frankly.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of demand. And so in order to keep up with that demand, I needed to keep hiring staff. And I've done it in a pretty scalable way so far. But yeah, I think it was important to go beyond me. And to be honest, like I think this business has always pushed me forward. I don't have a bachelor's. I don't even have a bachelor's.
Whoa, sister. Let's start right there.
Yeah, like
Whoa, you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a bachelor's degree?
You know, a lot of people are like, oh, like I must have an MBA in order to start a business. I'm like, I don't even have a bachelor's, guys. And I think that that's really scary. Honestly, it's scary to me sometimes. And it was very scary at the time to start this business. Like, oh, this is going to be fun. And then all of a sudden it's like, it's more than you can handle, but you learn how to shift with it, and you grow a community of people, that other entrepreneurs that help each other out. And you can always go take classes on certain things. Like I will take classes on business law, for example, when I was started feeling like I just needed to know more about contracts and things like that. So I educate myself as I need to, and the business is always the thing that pushes me forward. And that's like a nice kind of personal thing for me too, because I'm not in some job where I feel like my skill set is stagnant.
You have touched on so many amazing points. First and foremost, I love that you talked about how your vision that you have for what you want, the impact you want to create in the world, is bigger than yourself. And because I really believe, and there's a lot of stats and research that show this, that it's like 75% of all women business owners make less than $50,000 a year, and the majority of them never scale a business beyond themselves, because what I believe is that they feel like they're going to limit their amount of freedom, or they're going to sacrifice all these different things. And I think what you're showing is, like, if you're really driven to make this happen, like, you're going to hire other people. And have you found that you've had to, that by hiring other people that it's actually provides you to be like more freedom, or you're more in your zone of genius a little bit?
So right now, for example, I'm really getting into writing, and I'm really like trying to write differently and be in a more creative space in order to do that. So I will take a whole day where I don't have any meetings, and I will literally take my laptop to the beach, right on the beach, and I'll check in with my staff at the end of the day and say, hey, how'd things go? Anything I need to know about? So it allows me kind of the creative space. I'm also working on more business development now. Like, where are we going? We're about to roll out a pilot of our first group coaching program, which is something we've never done before. And having my staff help with the day-to-day of the business really allows me the space and flexibility to dream this and do it. And also, of course, like, I can travel, and I just got married, and I was able to take, thanks. And I was able to take kind of like, I took 2 weeks off for our honeymoon, and then the 2 weeks before the wedding, I wasn't really super plugged in either, because I was like enjoying every moment of the last minute planning. And, having staff really allowed me the ability to do that.
That is so huge. And that's the mentality that we want women to think about. That scalability, it doesn't always mean hiring people, but it does mean that you perhaps can make more money, more freedom, and have more flexibility in what you're doing and more impact. And so I think you're a true testament to that. That's amazing. You also talked about how as an entrepreneur, you just kind of learn what you need to learn when you need to learn it, right? It's like, you didn't get an MBA. You're not going to, by the way, you're not going to learn what you need to.
Right.
So was it, how do you know when to take initiative to learn more about internet marketing or business law, or, however, running a business? How did you learn how to run a business, really?
I like to say that I have a life MBA.
Right. I love that.
Because I feel like I have learned it all through experience. And sometimes that's how you know when it's time to take the next step and learn something. Like, when you can't figure it out and you need to figure it out, you're gonna. And you'll figure out how to figure it out too. Like, is it to take a class? Is it to talk to an entrepreneur in a community that you're involved in? Like, what is it? Because I think every circumstance is a different solution too. And yeah, I mean, I guess in some ways that does mean that things don't always move lightning fast, but businesses don't have to. And I think that that's like something that people expect. People expect that, like, they're going to launch, and a year later they're going to be like making six figures like themselves, and they're going to have this huge staff, and they're going to like know everything. And as an entrepreneur, you're never going to know everything. You're just not. And you're always going to be learning, and that's part of what's so fun about it.
So what has kept you going? When, first off, has it all been easy? Has everything happened the way you wanted it to happen? Or like, what keeps you going or persevering or taking that next leap of faith, whether that's hiring someone or launching a new program?
You're always going to fail. And I think that it's really important. I had a really big fail in that it's funny because, like, eFlirt Expert to a lot of people is like a big success because it's this idea that I took that was nothing that like I created a space for, right? But at the same, and there are a lot of like duplicates out there now. There are a lot of people us, and I think that is like the highest form of flattery, and I appreciate that. But I also had this other project that I was working on called eFlirt Engine, which was going to be like I was building an algorithm with a tech co-founder to basically match singles to dating sites. And it was a huge, huge fail because for me, I learned that it was just spreading myself way too thin. Like, eFlirt Expert was the thing that was thriving, and I was trying to create this new thing, and I just couldn't create this new thing and keep this growing. Like, so I had to let this go, and I had to let this fail, and that was really hard for me. It probably took me a year of like slowly letting go. It was like it was like the breakup that never really broke up. Like we were off and on, we were off and on, we were off and on until finally I had to like actually close it off. I had to shut the door and like wave goodbye. And I think that those moments are actually really important because you learn so much from failing. And then I think something I don't do as good of a job at, and I think this is probably a lot of entrepreneurs feel the same way, is that you really need to celebrate the successes too. Even the little moments. Like, I did a really good job of this in the beginning. I was like, oh my God, my first client. Oh my God, my first press hit. Oh my God, you know, and I am not as awesome at reminding myself that those little wins are actually huge wins.
I love that. Going through it myself personally, I'm like, oh, that's right, I accomplished all of these things that were ridiculous that I never thought I would, and we're here, but you forget because you're constantly pounding the pavement and moving forward. I think that's so important. Okay, so what's going on with the business right now?
So the business right now, like I said, this year has been, we changed all our pricing, like we've gone through quite a transition. And it's really exciting to see because it's something that I wasn't sure I could do. I didn't know that this was even broken until we fixed it. So it's been very exciting for me.
I was just going to say, like, so that was where you noticed that you were actually losing money on some of the clients. Okay, got it.
We're losing money. We also realized, like, we could just be charging more. I mean, we 5x'd our prices for our concierge service, which is crazy. And we created a new service that like didn't even exist 3 months ago, and we've already earned $25,000 in revenue off of that one service that we created. Like, insane things have happened in this business in the last 6 months, 7 months. And so that's really exciting. So there's just still a lot changing because this year is a transition year. We find that right now, before we used to be attracting 2 different demos, but more based on like average online dater and people who want us to do it for them. But now even those demographics are being much more specifically defined because of these price points and because we know we're great at helping also. And so there's a lot that still needs to change, even though there's a lot that's already changed. Like, we need to change the copy on the website in order to better attract that demographic. And you know, it's like you're constantly, like we talked about before, how do you know how to speak to that audience? Like, you're constantly figuring it out, and it's constantly changing. And it's just interesting because the online dating industry has changed so much since I've been in it. And so I think that's also, other than the pricing, that's also a reason why we're attracting this different demographic now, is because the landscape of the industry we're in is changing. So there's a lot of moving parts, but the big thing I'm super excited about, other than where we've been with all the pricing and the packaging and everything, figuring all that out this year, is we're going to be piloting our first group coaching program. And that's so exciting to me because it's something I have wanted to do. I have had this idea for a year. And I started working on it last summer, and then I got really scared. I got busy, and then I kind of let fear take over, and I like...
What were you scared? What were you scared of?
I was scared. I have only given help one-on-one. Like, you and me, and that's it. And I know how to get you results when it's you and me. And so doing something in a group, even though I give talks all the time, it's just different. And it's like, it's scary to me. Like, will I still be able to get you those results? And what are people going to... I have a very specific idea of what this group coaching program should be, and will people recognize that this is a problem they're having because it is more emotionally driven than some of the other stuff we've done. It's everything else we've done has been very tactical. It's like, we're going to write it for you, and this is like, you're not picking the right people, but it's coming from a place of like the past, not the site. It's not the site's problem. It's a problem that is happening in your heart. So it's a little it's just a totally different thing. And I'm really, really excited that I'm like finally pushing through all the fear. And once I recognized it, and my team has been supporting me so much in building it. And so we're going to pilot that starting in the fall, and then we're going to launch it for real in January.
Yay! So how do you push past your fear?
Well, first you have to recognize that it exists, which is really hard. At least for me, that's how I found.
Absolutely. Is this reality? Is this the universe talking to me, or is it inside my own mind and I'm making it up?
Yeah, because you make a lot of excuses. At least this is what I do. I make a lot of excuses, and I'm like, oh, I'm busy. I'm busy. I don't have time. I really need to set aside a whole day to work on this. Like, I put all these excuses in my way. And when you remove all the excuses, then you realize, like, maybe there's actually something more going on here. And then I like, once I removed all those blockades, I saw this like massive fear in my mind, but I also didn't know how to work around it. So actually I did this program with my business coach, which was a free resource she offers every once in a while. And it was like 21 days to push past your fears. And it was all these little micro movements every single day. So it was like, make a list of the really high level things you need to do. Like, you need to set a date. You need to fill the class. You need to, you know what I mean? Like, so these very big things, where before the place that I was left at was, I have 55 tasks. Like, I had tasked out the entire program, and then it looked really overwhelming. But like, I don't need to do 55 things. Like, I mean, fill the class had like 20 tasks, but really one or two of those might fill the class. So like, I don't necessarily need to do all of it. They're just all ideas. And so when I was able to break it down and really think about it high level and do all these little micro movements, it really pushed me past that. And now we're steamrolling. But it's something, fear is something I've given a lot of thought to lately, because I do think that it holds me back a lot more than I realize. And so basically I have this new way to hold myself accountable, is that if there is a task on my list that takes me more than 3 weeks to do, if 3 weeks later I'm still looking at it going, I'm not going to do that, then I step back and say, why don't I want to do that? Is it that I don't like doing that and I'm procrastinating because I don't like doing it? Or am I afraid of that?
That is good stuff, sister. It's a work in progress, I'm sure.
I mean, every business is a work in progress. Like, it really is.
Absolutely. So what does it feel like to start working with these new customers that you hadn't anticipated working with, that are a little bit out of your comfort zone?
In the beginning, you mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you work with everyone now?
You work with everyone.
So that's so interesting, because I mean, I guess if you had a cupcake shop, you could essentially sell cupcakes to everyone, but like,
you will sell.
And how do you find all of these customers? So what is your strategy to actually attract and find this wide diversity of people and their needs?
So let me rephrase. We will help anyone a la carte with our profile writing services, or little here and there. We will not work with everyone on our concierge services, because it is so intensive, and it needs to be a good marriage of you and us in order to make it work. In the beginning, I made the mistake of just allowing us to work with anybody, and because we, it was like
trying to make money,
and like, it's like a lot of revenue, so how can I turn this person away?
Yeah.
It ended up not being a good situation for either the client or us. It ended up causing my staff and myself like tons of anxiety if we know we couldn't do a good job for them, or if they were really looking for something that like we didn't believe we could provide, or we didn't believe was right for them too. So so that's something recently that we've really changed. And so we will work with anyone with the regular services, and that is hard too, because there's so many different personalities. I mean, literally we're working with like I've worked with a C-level executive who like lives in New York City to someone who is in the military and still stationed abroad, but like getting ready to transition back to, Kansas or wherever they lived before, to like working with someone who is disabled, physically disabled, to working with someone who is divorced, to working with someone who is widowed, which by the way, those things are different. Um, and working all age ranges from 19 to 70. And like the needs of a 19-year-old are different than the needs of a 70-year-old, and the challenges that they have are different. And there's so many intricacies to it. And so in the beginning, it was very hard to kind of navigate all of that. But then you learn. Like you learn what those different demographics need and want and what their challenges are. And the throughput of it all is the same. It's the specific situations that are different.
Oh my gosh. I love that you are turning down clients.
Yeah, that, I mean, honestly has been, I think, the most empowering thing that I've done in a while.
Yeah.
Is saying no. I've actually started practicing saying no because I think
Me
it's
too.
good. I think it's really hard to say no to things. Even like meeting with another entrepreneur who isn't going to serve you and it isn't going to serve them. It's still really hard to say like, no, I'm not going to meet with you because I think as an entrepreneur, you want to create an environment where like we're all helping each other. But sometimes you just know it's not the right fit. And so I've started saying no more to opportunities like that so that when I have to say no to clients, it hurts a lot less.
Yeah.
And now I preface every call with a potential concierge client by saying that exact thing, that this needs to be a good match for both of us. And we're a boutique service and our capacity, is small. And we want to really know that we can help you. And by the end of the call, we'll figure that out. But that's really what this call is for. It's kind of like dating each other to make sure that we're a good match.
Absolutely. I used to do that when I was doing consulting, and it's especially if you have a higher price point product or service that takes your bandwidth, you have to be very particular about who you're working with. And they'd be like, why should I work with you? I'd be like, why should I work with you?
Yeah.
Right? Has to be a match. I love that. Okay, so we have a couple more minutes left. And for all of our women that are starting a business or that are running a business, and since you are the dating expert, I'd love for you to touch on any advice that you have in overcoming your fears of potentially, can I have it all? Can I actually find someone while running a business, or how do I manage a relationship while starting a business, or any of those things that you deal with, since I know that you particularly work with pretty powerful women?
Yeah. So many of my clients are female entrepreneurs or other powerful, successful women in business. And they all, at some point in their careers, have felt like my career needs to take the front seat and therefore my love life needs to take the back seat. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case. Like one can totally ride shotgun. And I think that first you need to believe that. And secondly, you need to just think about schedule. I think scheduling in particular is the hardest part of it. But you need to realize that you don't need to go on a dating site and spend like 25 hours looking through profiles. You don't need to spend these huge chunks of time in order to move forward. Sometimes moving forward is baby steps in your business, right? And so sometimes moving forward in your love life is the same. It's the same exact thing that applies. You can run your love life like you run your business, but it's coming from your heart instead of your head. That's the big difference. So for example, one of the things I suggest to all of those women is to set 20 minutes aside a day to deal with your dating site. Just 20 minutes. All you have to do is like look through your inbox, respond to whoever's in there, do a search, maybe find one or two new guys to message, and that's it. Then you're done, and you're on to the next thing. So it's just a really manageable type of time for you to take. that will help you move things forward. And just make sure, I think that it's also common once you meet someone to feel like they're taking time away from your business. And remember that
Are you talking directly to me? No,
maybe. But the reason that you built this business, that you are building this business, is probably so that you have an amazing life, right? Mm-hmm. And part of having an amazing life is having someone to share it with. And so if you focus on getting here and then you try to find someone, it's going to be more of a struggle because meeting someone takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't just snap your fingers, you know? So if you meet someone along the way, that's okay. Then they're part of your journey and you're living it before you even get to that milestone. Because, I mean, our businesses have a zillion milestones. There is no there. There is no it. Like, it's always up, 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 up in the best of scenarios. So you really need to think about finding love to help you accompany it through the whole journey. I think me and my husband are a really great example of how you can meet someone and still build your business, because we met each other when we were just a few months in to our businesses. And that was something that really helped propel both of us, is that we were there for each other. And when we had a tough day and we needed to, like, I needed to cry it out because, like, you know, I didn't know where to go from here. Like, he was there to support me. And so having that someone to come home to while you're building your business it's not going to hinder you at all. If anything, it's just going to support you more, as long as you find someone who's supportive to your business.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, I just love this interview. You're so amazing. And I think such an inspiration to so many women, not only in the life that you've created for yourself, but as a business owner and a woman. And so where can women find more about you and about your business?
You can find more about both of us at eFlirtExpert.com. I'm also on Twitter at eFlirtExpert, and you can check out my book too if you just want to dabble in a little advice at Love at First Click, The Ultimate Guide to Online Dating. And it's anywhere books are sold, basically.
Woo! Love it. Thanks so much for coming on, Laurie. I just adore you.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode. I hope that you loved it as much as I did. Laurie's amazing. You can find her contact information on our page. And if you loved it, please share it on social media. We have buttons for you to do that. And also share it via email to anyone that you think that might enjoy it. We'd also love for you to subscribe to our email list so that you can get our Fearless Founders in your inbox every week, so you can get the tips and tricks behind how these women built these incredible businesses and lives. So thanks again.